Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first webinar in 2022, live from the incubator Bernard Magrez Start-Up Win. Today we will discuss influencers and startups. Today we had the pleasure to welcome at the incubator a few influencers who are with us today on this webinar. I will start by thanking you all for being with us. I hope you enjoyed your meetings with the startups this morning. This afternoon will be more about talking about the future, the trends of the wine sector and the influence marketing. So we welcome today Diana Isaac from Winearist in the UK. Léa Gatinois from Humble Wine, a startup that is with us at the incubator. Jane & Son, who has started her own business, Jane & Son inside Bordeaux a few months ago, and we know you for the decanter experience for many years and the wine critic. Welcome. Benjamin Sonnet is with us as well from the startup My Balthazar, specialized in the digital world in the wine industry. Ilaria Cappuccini from the Instagram account Just Say Wine, and Estelle Mo from the Instagram account C'est Madame qui choisit le vin and the website Bordeaux Confidentiel. Thank you very much to all of you for being with us today. Just before starting the discussions, let me just remind you about the incubator, Bernard Magrez Start-Up Win. The incubator started about 14 months ago, started with about 25 startups. We went up to 35, and today we have 50 startups in the program. The program is made of 4 levels of support, from companies just starting, creating their company, up to companies already developed and coming here to share their experience with the younger startups. This initiative was launched by Bernard Magrez, who owns 4 Grand Cru Classé chateaux in the Bordeaux region, as well as 42 wineries around the world in about 10 countries. Bernard Magrez is very active in philanthropy, wine tourism, and started a research and development department in 2015, and starting with drone and robots and projects about freezing, struggling about frost in the wineries, and the incubator is actually in this same kind of initiative, innovation, and of course helping new entrepreneurs to succeed in the wine industry. So we are going to start with you, Jane. Actually, one of the questions when we talk about influencer marketing is first the definition of influencer. What is an influencer? We are going to try to answer this question this afternoon. But another question is, what is the difference between being influenced and being an influencer? And I think you are the perfect example of someone who has been very influent, probably the most influent woman in the wine industry for years, being a wine critic at Decanter. And you have started your own business, and so you're still very influent. You have your community, maybe not the biggest community on the social networks, but very influent. So first, can you tell us more about what you are doing now, your new website?
Okay, so thank you, first of all, for asking me to be on this panel today. I would definitely say that I started via legacy media, traditional media. So I was a journalist before I was a wine writer. And my expertise, such as it is, was built up very much in a traditional way through research, through taking wine exams, and through writing books. So I've written about 7 different books. And I guess I was always slightly entrepreneurial, because my very first book, I started writing it before I had a publisher. And in order to get it published, I had to sell 2,000 copies before the publisher agreed to do it, and that was probably 10 years ago. And it was, I would say, the single most important thing that I did in my career, because if you're a wine writer, there are a lot of wine writers out there in the world, and how do you establish having a credibility? And writing books, although it takes a long time, is a very good way of establishing credibility. So I think that was really important for me to do that. And I love writing books. I would still think of myself as being an author and a writer above anything else. But it becomes clear as you go along that in today's world, the media is shifting, and legacy brands, although they teach us an awful lot, and I'll always be grateful to Decanter, but it became clear that I had an expertise of my own, and I was known for my expertise in Bordeaux, and I wanted to own my own intellectual property, so the writing and the tasting notes, I was ready for them to be under my own kind of banner. And I wanted to feel like I was in control of my career, and going forward, being able to make decisions that would help other people who are coming in. I know it's not easy to establish yourself as a freelance writer. So I guess I just got to the point in my career where I wanted to take the next step. And so 4 months ago, I launched, or 5 months ago now, I launched janeanderson.com. You were really helpful, honestly, in giving me the confidence to do it and to just kind of talk me through a lot of the process of it. So thank you for that. And yeah, it's been great so far. A lot of work, but really rewarding.
So you just said it. The world is shifting. I mean, we all saw that during COVID. And before we go further with questions, I would like to turn to Benjamin Sonnet, who is part of our the startup, being at the incubator. Benjamin, you are specialized in studying the digital world of the wine sector. You have created a ranking of the best properties, the visibility. I mean, having the best visibility on the digital world on website and social networks. You also are an advisor and counsel to some wineries and chateaus. Can you tell us more about how you see things shifting in the digital world? I mean, to go further. Okay, what do you see today in the digital world in wine sector?
Yeah, so my Balthazar, we are collecting the digital data on wineries and chateaux since 2017. So it's now 5 years we're doing that, and we're doing that to help wineries and chateaux to have a better understanding on the digital world, and to help them to be better on digital in terms of presence, in terms of power, in terms of efficiency. So the ranking is one thing, yeah, but our mission is to help them to do that. And clearly, we saw before and after the COVID crisis. Since the COVID crisis and the lockdown, it was like a wake-up call for a lot of properties who didn't see the digital as a strategic thing for them before. And when the lockdown appeared, some of them who hadn't a real digital strategy before, they were lost. So it raised some questions for them. How I can address my audience, since I don't did that for years. How I can sell online, for example. How comfortable I am with the digital space, with the code, the usage, etc. And how good I am on influence. And so for the wineries who did this work before the crisis, they took a big step ahead of the others. And regarding the influence marketing, in France, it was on the wine industry very low thing before the crisis, and so it took a big step forward since the crisis, and it became vital for some wineries who didn't have enough audience to spread their message during the lockdown. So for now, there were a lot of tests, a lot of experimentation between the influencers and between the wineries during the lockdown and after. And like every experimentation, something worked, some didn't work. There were a lot of Instagram live tasting, post articles, stories, extra. And wineries are now more open-minded about innovation, about influencers, because they saw with the crisis that the world is moving. The audience is now more digital, so they need innovation, they need digital to be visible to the new generation, and not only the new generation, but all the people who are not drinking wine. So the world is shifting. Influence marketing is now a big thing, and except that, we saw some discussion about marketplaces, about NFTs, about metaverse, which are not really interesting right now for a lot of wineries, but the world is moving fast, so it will become a real thing for some of them very quickly. So it's interesting to talk about that.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Benjamin. So, yeah, it's interesting what you're saying. I mean, we have all seen a lot of changes during COVID, and it went very fast as far as shifting. So Jane, back to your website and your platform. We were talking earlier about how, I mean, as a start, we have different profiles today. We have influencers as we define them, with like Instagram pages, with social networks accounts with many followers, and we have other profiles, business women actually today, with big communities and very influenced in the sector. So on your side, you don't do collabs, for instance. I mean, chateaus cannot call you and ask you for a collab. You're still basically following the method that you were using as a journalist. I mean, how can a chateau be featured on your site?
So yeah, so my site is important to me that I'm independent from doing collaboration, certainly not paid collaborations. So my site is a subscription site, so people will pay, it's 110 euros a year. People will pay to become a member of my site, and then for that you have access to my notes. And a lot of the people who would subscribe to me would be people who might work in Bordeaux wine. I mean, Bordeaux wine is sold in 170 countries worldwide, as we know. It is such a key part of the global wine trade. So maybe people who are learning about it, or they might be sommeliers, or they might be selling the wine, distributing it for whatever reason, of course the chateaus as well, then they would be paying the site to become a member of that community. But it was really important to me that it wouldn't just be about scores. I said before, I'm a writer and I care about stories behind wine. So I'm trying to make sure I have podcasts and videos and a lot of history of Bordeaux and other articles. And it isn't just me. If you're an expert about Bordeaux, I want to give a platform. So I did the brilliant excerpt 2 weeks ago from Wine and War, which is this amazing book written by Don and P.T. Kladstrup, and they did a special introduction for me, talking about how they did the research for Wine and War, which hadn't been published before. So I did an excerpt with the book, with them giving a bit of extra. And I'm trying to do that going forward, getting historians to speak. So I want it to be an interesting place to come. And also I'm trying to do real world things. So just this morning, I launched a mentor week. So again, it's about this idea of, I feel like I've done well in my career, and Bordeaux's been so helpful for me, establishing my credibility and this reach of Bordeaux that's just so incredible. So I want to kind of do that pay it forward thing. So in September, if anyone who wants to get into the wine industry, and open till the end of April, if you want to kind of give in your candidacy, you will come to Bordeaux for a week, and you'll spend a week either doing the harvest, kind of speaking with me. I'll do some tasting with you and talking about how does the Place de Bordeaux work, meeting sommeliers, meeting people who come here to meet some other startups, and just really having an access kind of behind the scenes to the world of Bordeaux. And it's going to be free. It's just really, I just want to give my time to reach the new consumers and new people about Bordeaux can be seen as being very closed. And I guess my point is I want to try and open it up.
Yes, it's actually great. The website is called Jane & Son Inside Bordeaux, so it's actually great for people from Bordeaux like us to have you selecting this region and basing your work on that.
And actually, really important to say, that is also why I have to be seen as independent, is why doing a paid collaboration for me would totally undermine the idea of my site, because I still want to be seen as being an independent voice in Bordeaux. And I also cover any of the icon wines that go through the Place de Bordeaux. So there's a lot of Napa as well on the site, some Australian wines, any of that kind of global wine that goes through the merchant system of Bordeaux.
And actually, it makes sense based on your background, because same as for magazines, for instance, people buy the magazines, but the journalists are independent and they write articles based on what they see. So it's kind of what you still do today. And as I said, we are going to talk to different profiles of influent people and influencers in the wine sector. But yes, your model is based on basically the users paying the fee and you being the independent journalists, wine critics that you have been for years. So yeah, it's really clear now. Who are the people who can sign up to be a member of your site? Anyone can? Do you see any specific profiles interested in this?
Absolutely, anybody can. One thing that I've noticed quite heavily is there's a lot of American sign-ups. I think because it's been such a long time that American wine lovers are used to paying a subscription fee for wine websites, so it's not such a big leap to do that. Of course, the UK, quite a lot in France, and with Decanter, I did a lot of work in China. So we had a yearly masterclass or event that we held in Shanghai. So I have reasonable community already in China. So that's kind of growing. But my biggest by far is the States so far.
Okay. Now on the other side, well, we understand really well you are independent. But if some chateaus, some wineries want to send a candidacy, I mean, to be candidate to be featured on your site, I mean, do you accept that, or do you just select by yourself where you're going to go, which wine you're going to taste? I mean, how does the selection process work?
So there'll be certain times of year where every journalist is looking at Bordeaux, like en primeur season, and I do a tasting of 10 years on. So there are certain points in the year where it's clear what I'm doing because Bordeaux sets the pace. And then other times, something I did in my book, Inside Bordeaux, was I looked a lot at the terroir of Bordeaux. So trying to, again, move the conversation forward. If it's interesting to me, I hope it's interesting to other people. And I've felt for a long time that the way we talk about Bordeaux is too prescriptive, and we just talk about big business, and we just, don't see it as being a place with real people making real wines. And that's something that's important to me. So I'll do terroir spotlights, but that will be me selecting. So of course, I'm very open, I'm very, very relaxed at anybody contacting me and saying that they would like me to talk about their wines. But the most likely is to do it during those big times of year, like en primeur or 10 years on, when there's a specific thing happening. And then for the rest of the year, it's really me deciding where are the smaller estates that I think people should know about? Where are the terroirs that I think they're not classified, but they just offer brilliant value for money? Those kind of things I will keep highlighting through the year.
Well, thank you very much. Really interesting experience. I'm going to ask Leah now. Leah, actually, when you hear Jane and Son, I'm sure you're looking at like a few years from now. You have a startup part of the incubator, or you have been selected in one of the top 10 startups of the incubator. Can you tell us more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So Humble Wine is the company I created 2 years ago. Basically, before it was just about sharing the wine journey. I was a wine student, so I did a master in wine and spirits management. I then went for the WSET diploma, and I really felt I wanted to share this journey. I gained a community, I exchanged with people, so it was a great way to get the people on the journey with me, and started to actually share the product, wine workbooks that we developed. We then developed wine boxes, blind tasting boxes. So it was really a way for wine students to practice their wine maps. That's the goal of Humble Wine. We want to promote the learning of wine through practice. So we, for instance, developed this book that you can see in the background. And that's it. We actually decided to be on social media because it's the way to reach the people that could be interested by our products, and as well a way to share our passion. And then we started as well with the online shop. Yeah, that's it about Humble Wine, and we are really happy to be here with Bernard Magrez. It's a great opportunity to network, to meet with people, to be seated with these brilliant people around me as well.
So you started with building a community. That's what I understand. First, you had your community. Was it Instagram, Facebook? What?
Instagram mainly, a bit Facebook and LinkedIn, and we recently started on TikTok. My associate is taking on TikTok. It's something different. I'm sure we will talk about it. And Instagram mainly, because I guess it's our generation. It's the trends that we like. We like pictures, videos. We like exchanging with people. That's social media that answers all the need. Like we like to be connected as well.
So do you define yourself as influencer, startupper, both? I mean, where are you today? What is your
not really influencer. I would rather say entrepreneur. Someone having a startup and sharing the journey. So it's not only about sharing the passion for wine. It's also like growing the team and sharing the products that might answer the needs of other wine students, hopefully.
Okay, and just as a short story, but you had the chance to meet Bernard Magrez the other day, and when you told him that you had 15,000 followers on Instagram, he was impressed first because you just started the company, and he was telling you that this was a great potential as far as maybe collaborating with other chateaus or wineries. How do you see the future of Humble Wine? Is this based on just your community? Do you think about working with other influencers, other strategies? I mean, what is your plan?
I think the community is like something that is moving a lot. Sometimes you just meet the people, they enter the community, you exchange with them. It's not like one way. That's the power with social media. You learn from the others all the time. So I guess we're not influencing. They are influencing it. They are influencing us a lot. We learn a lot from people. So they enter the community. Maybe at some point they will not like it anymore. They will leave. So we always connect with each other. We learn from the others' community. So the community evolves. Maybe partnering with Chateau is nice as well to get them their visibility. I would say the important is always to stay transparent and to keep truth. Like always being in line with what you like, with what you do, always liking what you share as well. Very important.
One thing that I noticed about the books is the style. It's a very new style. As you said, it's for now. It's for the students mainly. Do you have a special style as well on Instagram, for instance, when you do your content? How to create?
Create a universe, create a graphic guidelines, and try to stick to it. That's very important, so that people can really define how is your brand. And then if you find your universe and people like it, that's I guess sometimes you just have to be a bit lucky that what you like will be liked by others as well. We try to do something that is young, colorful, that is a bit different as well. And then you you ask questions to yourself, and you ask people as well, what should I do to be better?
So I understand, yes, you are listening a lot to your community, basically, for your products. For the people who want to get more information on the books, on your business, on your startup, the website is?
Yeah, it's humblewine.com, and feel free to connect on Instagram, TikTok as well. Basically anywhere you can find us.
Okay. So yeah, many entries actually for your customers, your community to enter and to get in touch with you and get your products. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So now we are going to talk to Diana. Diana, to go further on about what Leah was saying, one of the questions I had, and we can go further on that. First, maybe, let us know what you do. Wineries started about 10 years ago, I believe. And by then you were a startup as well. I believe you went through an accelerator program. Maybe you can tell us more about that and where you are today.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's so lovely to be with so many people that I already know of.
and people who are new. So a little bit about Winerist. Winerist is a wine and food travel platform. We specialize in wine experiences. We work directly with the chateau and the wineries. We work with the wine hotels and also with tour operators. So we're like a marketplace that is connecting the consumers with what they want to do in terms of wine hospitality. Aside from that, we also have a marketing agency where we work directly with the wineries and with the tourism boards to help them to come online and to become more digitally aware. The work that we do, particularly with the tourism boards, is extremely important because we find that a lot of the time tourism boards don't quite know how to bring the wineries and the chateau and the hotels online. And through us, they find exactly that voice and the platform that they require. We also have a technology business, which is allowing wineries and chateau, tour operators and hotels to sell their experiences directly to the consumers. So again, we're bringing them online away from responding to emails and picking up the phone to bringing them this calendar that allows consumers to basically go and book the experiences directly. And I know that there is somebody within the accelerator program that is doing a product similar to that. So obviously kudos to them for doing that.
Thank you. So can you tell us more about this accelerator program you went through, I think 2012 to 2014, I believe. You were selected as one of the first startups in the program, I believe, and did this help? I mean, what can you tell us about it?
Yes, sure. So very early days, in 2014, 2015, we joined an accelerator program called WERA, which is an accelerator program run by Telefonica. will.i.am was one of the mentors and one of the people who actually awarded us so obviously we were extremely excited about that. But once the celebrity factor wore off, we very quickly realized that there was much more to the accelerator program than that. So we received everything from digital marketing support to legal support to technology, so everything. And we going back, and I actually went back and worked as a mentor later on within the same accelerator program. Looking back at it, I think that the biggest support was obviously the people who were there to enable us to learn all of these skills, because they were working across several startups, so they were seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when it came to us, they were really able to make an impact and say, well, you guys should probably not do this because it's not a really good idea. But the other thing that was equally important is the fact that we were in there with people who were in the same boat. We were all struggling. We were all going through the same kind of phases. So we were learning from each other just as much as we were learning from the mentors. So when I look back at the experience, I think that I wish I had spent even more time with my peers, with my colleagues who were going through that. And when I look back, I think it would have been great if the accelerator program would have put us in front of the startups that had gone through the acceleration before us, because it'd be so amazing to see the progress. So one thing that you're doing here is that you're allowing startups to kind of roll over, and I think that's really important because that's where the biggest value add is.
Yeah, very inspiring even for us organizing this program. And just so you know, for the people watching us, we have about 25 startuppers in front of us watching us. And thank you for the great advice that you just gave, because that's what we are trying to do as well. Developing the connections between the startup and having the most developed and aged startups come share their experience here. So, well, thanks for this advice. Now, you have made a lot of progress since this experience. I wouldn't define you as an influencer, but someone very influent as well. You have about 100,000 subscribers on your platform. So this basically means that when you list a chateau or a destination, this is very important for them. So in that way, you are very influent for those chateaus, wineries. So how do you, same question as I had for Jane earlier, I mean, how do you select those? How can they apply? How do they contact you? I mean, how to work with you?
So first of all, I'd like to start by talking a little bit about the concept of being an influencer, because I think and feel it has been getting such a bad rep, and everybody has been saying that being an influencer is, you know, all the hype but none of the output. And I think that that's wrong. And in particularly in the wine industry, somebody who is an influencer can really produce an impact, because wine is like a minefield, right? You go in there and you don't know where to start. I like white, you know, wine. Where do I go? So I think that we have to start by saying that a lot earlier, as we were saying, you know, as we were talking, people were saying, well, I don't really like to be called an influencer. I think that being an influencer is getting a lot of bad press. And I think we have to look back at the root of the word and, you know, accept the fact that being an influencer is actually great. You know, you are influencing thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And we can think of so many great examples out there. So I would love to say that Winearist is an influencer, but sadly, I don't think we can. I think Winearist is more of a brand. We're a business, so we obviously monetize by working with a chateau and with wineries and hotels that we sell. But we do have the power of influencing people because we have this approach of less is more. So we work with fewer partners, but we really engage with those types of partners that we believe in. So somewhere like a Bordeaux, which is a huge region, we don't work with more than 30 partners. And our goal is to make sure that for those partners that we work with, we provide enough business for them to, you know, to make them satisfied. So how do we select them? We work very closely with the tourism boards, but we also work very closely with content creators locally. So we ask them to go and secretly review the properties before they go online. So we do these so-called mystery visits. I have to say that we have accepted wineries and tour operators in particular online before doing the review, based on customers recommending them, our partners recommending them. So it's not really all, you know, the same approach, but there has to be a certain level of quality control. So even if we accept someone on the platform, we have about 3 to 6 months period where we go and review them. We also have a pretty tough one-strike policy. So if one partner does get a really bad review, they get removed off the website, and the likelihood of them coming back on board is very small. Because my principle, our principle as a business is that where there is wine and food involved, you have to try really, really hard to get it wrong. So, you know, to make someone really unhappy after a few glasses of wine, you have to make quite a lot of effort. So. It's a very good question. I think in the history of the company, we've probably had 3 or 4 bad reviews, so we haven't been, we've been quite lucky. There is a platform where they can post those reviews, and we can track it back to that particular reservation. So we always pick up the phone, we speak to the supplier. If they say that yes, indeed something went wrong. But you know, a lot of the time with hospitality, it's about the fact that somebody felt like they paid for something and they got something completely different. And then it's just a matter of money. You know, it's just a matter of them feeling like they didn't get the quality that they were expecting. So most likely they want a refund. If it's something quite disastrous, which we haven't had any experiences with, then that's a different story. So let's speak again in 5 years' time.
So you have, as I said, you have about 100,000 people registered on your platform, and you have about the same number of followers on your social networks. Are those the same people? Do you talk the same way to your customers than you do to your community as a business, actually?
I love this question because, you know, people always look at our Instagram and they say, wow, we've got more than 100,000 followers. That's amazing. Yes, it's amazing, but most of those people don't book with us. However, the power of platforms like Instagram is that they can influence and they can recommend. Most individuals who book with us, they are, let's talk seriously about wine travel. You know, people spend a bit more than they do on, let's say, an Eiffel Tower tour or a National Portrait Gallery ticket. So if you're spending a little bit more money, the likelihood that you're going to be sitting there on Instagram all day browsing is very small. So, but Instagram is a great platform for quality control. And we find that in those cases where somebody comes and wants to book something with us, they come to the website and they see a tour, they will very often go to Instagram and they will say, are we real? Are we crazy? You know, do we get bad reviews? Do we get people who's following us? Are our followers fake? All of those things that people are extremely clever right now about this type of research. So we find that Instagram and TikTok and Twitter to a certain extent are great confidence boosters, but we haven't yet made either of those platforms successful for us in terms of converting customers.
Can I add something to that? As a more traditional content creator in terms of being a journalist or a writer, I also would totally agree with you that I would often use Instagram as a quality control. So when the last book that I wrote, which came out 2 years ago, was called Inside Bordeaux, and it covered about 800 Bordeaux chateaux. And there was a certain level I had to include all the classified. Then there was a certain level of where I had to start narrowing them down, which ones am I going to include? And quite often one of my criteria would be, go and check their social media, is their website up to date? All of these little things which tell you, do those wineries care enough about engaging with their public that they do these things which matter now, like keeping up your Instagram and having a website where it actually tells you how do I contact them, when's it open, all of that kind of thing. And we made the decision with Inside Bordeaux, when you're doing a traditional book, paper's expensive, you've got, it's already 800 pages, I don't want it to be too big, so we didn't put addresses and telephone numbers. We assumed that the way people would find out to get to it was they'd go online and they would find those sites. So that was a really important criteria for me as well. If I had 3 beautiful, tiny Lalonde de Pomerols, sometimes I would think, well, these guys have got a brilliant profile online, and I like all of their wines, but I'm going to go with those. So I think that's a really important point. And from my own point of view, when I was writing for a legacy media, for Decanter, I was absolutely most prominent on Twitter. So Twitter, I have, 18,000 followers or something. But it's seen almost B2B. Twitter is very much, you're talking to other journalists, you're talking to other people in the trade. And I love it as a freelance writer. It can be lonely on your own at home. Sometimes it's great to chat with your friends via Twitter. But now, as a business owner, I'm much more conscious. I have to build up Instagram and those other platforms because that's where the public is actually much, much more than Twitter. So it's been fascinating. So thank you. Enjoyed hearing you say that.
I just want to also add that we have sadly just had 2 years of the pandemic. So consumers are more used to consuming information on Instagram because a lot of people during COVID have spent time on Instagram and Twitter and social media networks, just browsing, shopping. And the brands that have moved things very quickly are brands within the beauty industry, because what they've done now is you go to Instagram, you see an item of clothing or a mascara or a shampoo that you like, you go on there, you click on it, and with Apple Pay, within 3 steps, you have checked out and you have purchased that product. What we have right now is we have wineries, very famous wineries that I will not mention the names of today, but they come to us and they say, look, we were selling 3,000 tours in July before COVID, and now we're not selling anything. So when you go to the website, you go onto the website, you do 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, 20 steps before you can actually check out, pay. And when you pay, you get the wheel of death, we call it, which is, the spinning thing that is your payment is not going through your payment. So, 20 minutes later, the consumer just gives up. And you have the language barrier with the wine industry, because you pick up the phone and somebody doesn't speak English or German, and that's fine. That's part of the charm. I do not think that everybody at the winery should speak the language. But when it comes to booking the experience, that is a massive hindrance. And what we're going to do is we're going to see more and more wineries disappear off the map and tour operators and hotels, unless they can make the booking experience instant. It has to be a 3, 4, maximum 5-step approach. And Instagram is going to be, hopefully in the future, one of those launching pads for our industry also. That's
a very good advice. Thank you very much. We were talking about Instagram, so we will turn to actually 2, do we say Instagrammers?
Why not?
Why not?
perhaps?
So Estelle from C'est Madame qui choisit le vin, French influencer, very active on Instagram. And Ilaria, your account, Just Say Wine, you're Italian. Thank you for the effort of speaking, being here first from Italy.
I'm really happy to be here today, so thank you all for this invite.
And speaking English as well. We
I'm
all
sorry if I'm not
except.
that English, but I try.
So thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit more about Instagram and how because that's your activity, your main activity. Maybe you have a job on the side. You will tell us that. But how did you decide someday to start, or did this come naturally? How did you start the influencer experience? Let's say.
I started. Okay. So I agree with my colleagues about the word influencer. At the beginning, 5 years ago, I created my Instagram just because I want to notice every bottle I test. Well, it just was my wine tasting first for remember every day. And I study wine, and that's why I have a lot of pictures of wine just to remember. After, my name, c'est Madame qui choisit le vin. It's because I was fed up with when I go to the restaurant with my husband, the sommelier gives the carte des vins to my husband, always. It was 10 years ago, I think, because I'm old. Always said, no, it's c'est Madame qui choisit le vin. That's why I
In
have
English?
the name. It's Madame who chooses the wine.
Yes, that's.
And 5 years ago, I was created that Instagram, and now I increased my account just because I was, I think, honest. I just made some not tasting, meet the chateau, meet people work in the vineyards, and that's now a kind of job for me. A job of meeting, a job of testing, a job of, and I also agree with my colleague when they say the COVID crisis makes something, make a big connection with us, because I think with the new network for the chateau and the winery, who was very, very alone at that period, COVID crisis, because there's no tourists, there are no tourism, no Chinese people, no Japanese, English or American, and the only solution for us is digital way of showing their works, and I think Instagram and the job of influencer increased in that time. That's why I think we are here now.
Yes, and if I understand correctly, you didn't want to be where you are today, kind of. I mean, you started by testing some bottles, and you saw your community increasing.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you say, "Wow, that's cool. Let's keep going." Or what was the idea?
For now, I have to increase always, because I'm not as big as my colleague now, and I learn every day. And I try to make my best. I try to be honest, and that's it. There's no recipe. I think it's just to be close to people who works wine. You drink wine, but what's the story of the wine? How they manage to create this wine, and that's why these people Start-Up is a great. Great way for me to find. It's I'm very happy to be here to meet you, all of you, because it's very important for our not testing. But not testing is not the end.
And Ilaria, what is your story? How did you start?
Yes, I've always had the passion for food and wine. So after the high school, I decided to add this bachelor in culinary art, so I'm a cooker, first of all. Then I made a master in business, in the wine of business, the business of wine. And during the period of COVID, I was working in a restaurant, and at the same time, I was working like an interviewer. So I go around my country, especially my region, that is Emilia-Romagna. I make interview to the producer, and we talk about their job, we talk about their passion. And any times I go home, they give me wines. So I decided to start talking about them. Because I saw that this little producer are not able, or they don't put attention to talk about them on the internet, on the social media. So I started, it all started like a joke. And then after 1 year, because I started in January 1 year ago, and I'm here, and I'm really happy to talk about these little realities of my country, especially, and some e-commerce that contact me in order to talk about them, about their products and the wine that they want to sell.
So if I've listened to both of you, I can hear passion and also content. I think those two parts seems to be the most important. I mean, you started by creating content. You started with your passion of cooking. I mean, today, I mean, I feel that some young people, they're like dreaming about becoming an influencer. I mean, would you say that first you have to have that passion, or this ability to create content, as we saw earlier with Jane and Leah? Are these the main skills you need to do what you're doing, or are there other things?
I think that passion is the most important things, because when you talk about a thing that you like, you will do it for sure better. So passion and study, a lot of study. I'm studying, I'm 25 years old, so I'm still studying and in the world of wine. But the thing that I really appreciate is to pair and to give advice, practice advice, in order to pairing food and wine, because I really love to cook. So the kitchen is my real passion. I create reels on Instagram, videos on Instagram, in which I prepare some plates, some recipes, and then I suggest a wine that you can consume with that specific plate. I use reels and short video mostly because this type of content really can reach a lot of people on the Instagram. If one of my posts can reach maybe 100,000 people, it really can reach even 500,000 people. So it's the impact of the image and this way to speak and to tell things in an easy way. To give this advice that can be easy to understand, to catch, and to fix.
So 100,000 people, 500,000 people, that's your reach. It's really impressive.
In Reels, yeah.
In Reels, okay. Where are those people from? Are they Italian, European, international?
Mainly Italian, but like 35%. Then I have US, France, like 15%, and German.
Do you post in which language? Do you post in?
In Italian, but I also try to translate in English. Instagram do it itself, the translation, but I know that I have to change my language because to reach more people.
Estelle, where is your community from? Is that
mainly in France, 77% in France, and I write in France.
You write in
Well,
France. Any translation as well?
No
No.
translation, because I want to focus on France first. Why not perhaps someday to do some in English? But now I made it easier in French with my community, mainly in France.
Okay. Talking about this community, I mean, so on the one side you have this big community, on the other side, of course, the chateaus and wineries probably trying to contact you to asking you to come visit and taste the wine. I mean, how do you manage that? It's probably like hundreds of emails or messages. I mean, how do you manage that?
First, they contact me. Perhaps it's possible in Instagram, but Instagram it's not very easy to check every message. So by email, it's the best for me. And when I first want I first test the wine I want to talk about. That's important for me. I have to like the wine, the property or the story first before working with.
Ilaria?
Yes, I have an agency that helped me doing this work. So people write email, and we saw the email together. We decided to respond, and someone offered me to taste wine. Someone asked me to go to them and to visit, and some restaurant too, because I'd like also to talk about experience you can do in different restaurants in Italy. I'm talking about Italy. But the best way to write an email, because it's easier for us to respond to everybody, answer.
Okay, and your email addresses are on your Instagram profile, I guess. So
It's easy to find us.
Yes.
okay. Are you being asked to travel internationally yet, or do you just travel in Italy, in France for you, Estelle?
For me, in France first. All over France.
For work and to talk about this reality only in Italy. I do some trip, but not for work. I would like to talk about France maybe in future and other countries, but for now in Italy.
Okay. How hard is it to stay independent? As Jane was saying earlier, you're probably, as you said, I mean, you have many messages and requests. How are you able? You said you were tasting the wine first or looking at the property. Are there any things or mistakes that people trying to contact you or work with you are doing, and you're like, well, no way? Or do you see that?
I try to be honest, like I said, and it's not my main job, Instagram. That's why I want to focus on the fact it's a passion, hobby. I want to meet people. I don't want to say wrong words, and like, because it's not my main job, I think I made a distance between people I met or wine I drink.
And as it is not your main job, how hard it is to manage both? Because
it's easy because I have the web agency.
Okay.
And I mixed the both, especially in Sébastien Chazilva, in wine, but web agency do for everybody. It's for everybody.
Ilaria, I think you have a job in digital as well?
Yes, I'm a social media manager because I have a master in digital marketing too, and I help some little producer of my region to public their content, because I go to them and I take picture too, and we publish together on their page in order to speak about them and to talk about their story and their reality. So I try to communicate for them with the client.
So this adds a third part. You had the passion, the ability to write or create content. I guess you have to have some skills in digital or web or social media, as you just said. let's jump to the next question, and maybe Benjamin can come back on that discussion. I was shocked because you were saying I'm 25, I'm too old for TikTok.
I'm dead.
Is this real? How do you see the future of social media?
I think that TikTok is really important nowadays. I'm on TikTok, but I don't create content specifically for TikTok. I would like to, and I would like to start to create video, because TikTok work with mini short video. I think that is really important, especially for brands, to talk with the target that is now on TikTok, that are the new generations, because they will be the future clients. They are all very young, because I think that from 15 to 19 years old, but in a few years they will for sure buy wine. So I think that is really important to talk with them on that social network.
It's actually really interesting what you're saying. The people using TikTok are 15 to 19, so today is definitely not the right time to talk to them about wine. But as you say, they are the future clients, and it's important. Estelle, any work on TikTok yet, or?
Yes, I am on TikTok and I have 2 followers. So if you want to be my next followers, I would be very happy. No, I know that TikTok is the new social network, I think, because of the video. But it's a big job. I don't have the mind. In area, I have 25. I think I'm going to.
You're 22, right?
You're 27. It's difficult for me to think by TikTok because I made some testing notes, and on TikTok you have to show yourself. You move, and with the not testing, it's for me not the right way.
And maybe Benjamin, yes, you can. Tell us more about that. Maybe TikTok is the next big social media, but is this good for the wine industry?
I think it will be because of the audience. It's hard for the wineries because TikTok is a very specific social network. You have to be only video, you have to be only vertical video. It's a platform where the content have to be promoted by a person, so you have to show your face, and a lot of wineries are not ready for that now, and you have to be creative. So there's a lot of things that wineries are not used to. So it's a really new thing. But just regarding the audience, TikTok for France published a few months ago that 70% of the audience are adults. So it was a very young audience. It's still a very young audience, but young adults. So regarding the loi E20 law in France, which is very hard for wineries because they can't be on platform where the people are very young. You can be on TikTok, so some wineries are already on TikTok with very low success for now because it's a learning process and it's hard to be very efficient at the beginning. But one thing is interesting to note that the biggest wine influencer in France, Émile Codins, has like 400,000, I don't know, a lot of audience on TikTok, and it's the biggest audience on TikTok than other influencers on Instagram. So the audience is young but interested on the wine content.
Particularly with that guy, there are a couple of classified estates who have worked with him. So I was at Cantonac Brown, which is a Margaux classified estate, probably 2 years ago now or 18 months ago, and he was there and they were doing a collaboration with him. So that was interesting. So there are some estates in Bordeaux who have kind of engaged with that.
Yeah, and I think collaboration, that's a good thing because it's hard to get the audience. In Cantonac Brown, I think there are like maybe 100 followers, but very few. So collaborate with audience. We have already a big amount of followers. That's a good way to go on TikTok.
Yeah, about TikTok, as you say, it's clearly here. It's a platform that is already established, and so for brands, it's maybe already too late to be there. So really, they should hurry. We're trying, so it's the same. But as you said, it's really about being creative and and then try to be a bit lucky because it's algorithm, and we always try to understand how it works. And sometimes it's a video that you did it. Sometimes you spend hours creating some materials, and it does 100 views, and then sometimes you don't understand. You just do one selfie, and up it goes 100,000 of views. So it's something that every influencers try to understand how it works. So sometimes it's just about being a bit lucky. And on TikTok, I guess it's the goal of every TikToker. So try to have this video that buzzes a lot.
Diana?
Thank you. I think with both Instagram and TikTok, what I find is that when it comes to selling wine, it's very difficult to sell wine on these platforms for obvious reasons. Age, don't want small children buying wine online. And I also think that with regards to both TikTok and Instagram and social media in general, you have to choose something, you have to stick to it, and you have to make it really, really good before you go and do something else. What we've seen with certain wineries is they like the idea of trying everything, and all of a sudden they just get onto TikTok and then they get onto Instagram, and then neither of those platforms gets enough attention, and they don't spend the time trying to understand who is the consumer. So in the end, they end up doing both really badly, which obviously is a waste of resource when you have a small or medium-sized business. But if you stick to it and if you get to the point where you understand who the consumer is and what kind of content they are digesting, luck becomes less important, because Instagram and TikTok, particularly Instagram, it really penalizes you if you're not consistent. So the moment you stop posting, it gets you off the grid. The moment you continue posting, both in stories and reels and posts, it glorifies you. It's basically like, hallelujah, you know. It literally rewards you instantly. And that's the great thing about these platforms. Yes, they are in a certain way difficult, but at the same time, they do reward you if you are consistent with your content. And Instagram and TikTok and, you know, if we had to talk about content creation, Google as well, they're only going to get smarter and smarter. They crawl these incredible social networks, and they will be able to intelligently understand how relevant you are, how engaged you are, how much money are you making from this, are you getting paid for it or are you not? So consistency is key, and also understanding who it is that you're speaking to. And when you're speaking to these to this community, to make sure that you don't patronize them, and to make sure that you speak to them in a way in which they feel like you are their friend. We've seen this very recently. There was a case study, and the documentary went live on, I think, BBC, about some influencers who were getting such a good rep and they were doing such a good job, and all of a sudden they started getting paid for a product that was really bad for the environment, it was bad for the planet, bad for people, and they got paid a lot of money, and they went ahead and created this content. And that was, you know, their downfall. So consistency, loyalty, and knowing who you're speaking to and being able to deliver that kind of thing is really important, but also making sure you don't do too many things. So if you think that TikTok is not kind of your thing, I'm with you, Ilaria. You know, I feel like TikTok for us as a business would be too derailing right now. We're doing some stuff on it, but you know, I just feel like we need to get to the point where Instagram can start generating us revenue, and then maybe in 5 years' time, when the children are grown-ups, we can start selling them some wine holidays.
Staying about the children, I mean, what about the age? We were talking about loi et vin in France, but in more generally, I mean, internationally, you can't sell wine or alcohol to underage people. Do you meet any challenges on your different medias? Are any things blocked or from the audience, or just blocked in general? I mean, what is your experience with this? Because it's kind of sensitive subject. Anyone want to?
Yeah, I'll take this one. We don't sell wine, so for us it's fairly easy. but we have seen it in the past when we've worked with wine partners, that where you try to sell the wine, you can encounter problems. So it's more our responsibility from an ethical perspective. We just want to make sure that we don't do anything that is going to have an impact. So it's just a kind of an element of accountability. But I know that within the wine world, wine influencers, there are very few who have successfully managed to make this leap from creating the content and actually selling the wine. So I'm not sure if anyone else has had that experience.
Yeah, I guess selling or talking about wine, I mean, even that can be sensitive if people are underage. So I don't know if you see any regulation or any posts that are blocked based on this criteria.
I don't see something very expressive on the Instagram, but when I exchange with chateau or brands, when they're the contracts, it's written about loi et vin. You don't have to have the glass beneath your nose. You don't have to put your glass. You have to take the bottle closed. A lot of things you don't have in France to be a big décolleté. I don't know how to say. In US you can, but in France no. I had the case for me. Because
The irony.
Okay. And after, we don't sell wine, but when brands continue to work with you, I think they sell wine. When they choose you once, twice, I think they sell wine. That's the only mark you can see for me.
Sebastian, if I can add one thing, because it was touched upon earlier about this thing that you have to be impartial, you have to create content, and you can't. I think that in this world there is very little that differentiates an influencer from an agency. I think that if you are an influencer who's very good at creating content, and you are confident in your abilities, you can create good content, you can create written content, you can create good photography. You have a great network of people who buy the product. I don't think that there is anything wrong with getting paid to create content for someone else. If you're thinking about all the chateaux and all the wineries, they're going to go to an agency and pay them to create that content anyway. However, if they go to an influencer and that influencer is going to taste it and say, hey, it's good. Hey, I think that this particular rosé is going to appeal to this particular demographic. There is nothing wrong with that. I think that we need to move away from the concept that it's bad for influencers to get paid, because I don't think it is. It's just a form of advertising. What the problem occurs when influencers go and say that everything is great, but they just kind of need to get to the stage where they need to, if I'm getting paid, if I'm an influencer and I'm getting paid by a particular wine brand or by a particular chateau to create some content for them, I need to think about how am I differentiating this particular client from the next client? How is my content going to stay fresh? How is my consumer going to be constantly engaged? So I just want to kind of, again, move away from the bad reputation that getting paid for content is, and I think that there is no harm in working with influencers. It's just that it's the responsibility of the brands to choose the right influencers and to ensure that they have constant communication with them to tell them, this is what we're thinking, this is what we would like, and for the influencers to say, well, actually, I'm going to push back because I don't feel comfortable doing it. So that kind of collaboration needs to be really smart too.
And it's actually a good advice for, let's say, beginner influencers. And we go back to what Jane was saying at the beginning, stay independent, and what you were saying, I mean, work with passion and what you really think about the product. So yeah, that's thank you for all these advices, Jane.
It's such an interesting question, because from my background as a journalist and from the very first beginning of my career would always be stay independent, stay independent. And I certainly know that today, if you speak to the younger audience, whatever that means, but the TikTok community and early 20s, there is without a doubt much less of a wall between the different parts of the media. There's no question about that. But I would say we're talking here about if you're building up your career, you have to stand for something. I still would definitely believe that. And so from my own point of view, there's a lot of people who are happy to write about wine without being paid. But in my career, I have not done that. I've said I'm a writer, so I'm a journalist. So if I write about wine, I want to be paid for it. And I've taken myself seriously in that way to say, you know, even for wine magazines, there are plenty of people who will write for them and not get paid for it. And I don't think that's a good thing for the future of all of us people who are trying to create our careers. So I 100% agree with you, but I more agree with the idea that if you're going to be paid by somebody, you have to know what you stand for, because otherwise, as your own brand, you're not going to be able to do that long term.
Sorry, that's why as an influencer, you have to be able to pick whatever is aligned with your set of values. But influencers, I know people who are working as influencers and they need to live. And they're not going to live off free hotel rooms and free bottles of wine, and you know, this is not going to pay for your life. It's not going to pay for your children to be fed. So we have to be very realistic, but the responsibility stands with both. Brands have to not expect that because they've paid an influencer, that influencer is going to create the content that is going to put them in the best of lights, and they have the power of veto. And then the influencers have to be very much responsible for choosing whatever is aligned with them. So if I'm talking about wine, I can't be talking about dog food, tomorrow. So.
Thank you very much. We are getting some questions from the audience. Before that, Benjamin, you have been ranking chateaux and wineries. Any plans to rank the influencers to make it easier for brands and wineries to select the good one?
No, no, because it would be too hard to rank influencers and to have a clear vision who's better than who, because it's a lot of questions of quality, and our rankings are totally made based on data. So for Chateau and Champagne, we are doing rankings since 4 years. Based on all social network and which Chateau has the more powerful audience, the more engagement, the more mentions. So that's really clear data. For influencers, some big influencers are less relevant than small influencers, so it won't be too hard to make a ranking about that. And it won't be a big help for Chateau, because some Chateau needs to work with influencers, but needs at first to raise the good questions. What are my strategies? Which are my targets? What do I need with influencers? Is it to reach a new audience? Is it to based on branding? Is it to sell wine? And according to these questions, the influencers that will be relevant will be the same. So we help some of our clients to work on influencers, but more on listing on influencers regarding different criteria. But if you see rankings on what are the best influencers on wines, don't look at it, because I can guarantee it won't be relevant at all.
And as we discussed for all that time, it's not all about the number of followers either. So it's really hard to know what you guys are really thinking when you create content. We have questions from the audience, and actually, so Jonathan, Philippe, Morgan, Ken, the question is more or less the same. How to get in touch with influencers, how to optimize the strategy, and how to have a good relationship with influencers. I think you started to answer, but do you want to tell us a little more about that?
Sure. So I think before you think about how to get in touch with influencers, you need to figure out what is your marketing strategy in the first place. So we always think that going to influencers is going to be like the panacea, is going to be the cure for whatever problem we have, but it's not. What we need to do is we need to think about what is our digital marketing strategy going to be in the first place. And I always, because we produce this free information before we start consulting a winery or a wine hotel or a tour operator. We produce this free information, and it's kind of like a marketing 101. Where do you start? So the first thing that you start with is, what is your brand? What are your brand values? These are our brand values. Who are your consumers? What is it that you're trying to achieve? And then if you go through this, let's say, guide, you start realizing that reaching out to influencers is not your biggest problem right now. if you have a brand that is already fairly well established and you want to get some exposure on social media, that is one way of looking at it. Now, once you've defined all of that and you know what your brand is about and what your values are, then you start thinking about those types of individuals that are most aligned with what it is that you stand for. And you conduct interviews with them. You don't just send them an email and say, hey, how much? Because honestly, this happens. It's unbelievable how many times it happens. But you set up a call, you have an interview with them, you try to figure out what their values are. It has to be an interviewing process. It's like a job. And then once you've decided that you want to work with them, then you obviously negotiate a rate. But they have to be, obviously their values have to be similar to yours, and they need to be on the same page in terms of what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Any other comment? Yeah, Estelle?
I agree with you. I think a brand have to have a lot of way of communication, and Instagram it's a new or one kind of social media we have to use, and I think the simple way to connect with us is to send an email, and after we talk with him. So and ask a few questions about what's your goal. What, do you want to sell in France? To sell in foreign country? What do you want to do? And for me in France, the chateau in France, it's, I just want to make French know my wine, because before the crisis COVID, I sent and US and Japan and Chinese, and I have another problematics. I have a new problem. Help me to expose, to make my wine known by French people.
Thank you. Well, I guess the other question, I believe we already answered that one. How to get in touch with you? You said it. You have emails, and those are usually in your profile.
Yeah, because I don't have an agent.
No agency, yes.
Not yet. But yes, an email, and I can answer for.
And and is this okay to insist by email? So I guess people are really trying to get in touch with you.
Try twice.
So yeah, well, I guess if we listen to all the things you said today, I guess I will remember that independency, passion, the truthness, strategy. I mean, you have to think about it. Influencer marketing is not just magie, and you would not just work with an influencer and all of a sudden the business is great. So it's, I think everything you all said today just shows that. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything. Sure.
This question, this excellent question, is it okay to insist by email? It's so important because, and I'm sure this is true for all of us, you have 5 or 6 or 7 different channels in which people are sending you questions, and you forget, was it on LinkedIn or was it on Facebook or was it on, or was it on Instagram? And so I would say, yes, it's okay to insist by email, because often you get so many emails in a day or in a week. There are things that you really mean to reply to, but you don't, because if you don't do it straight away, something else comes in. So I would say, yes, if you think that there's a good idea and you think you've got a good fit with somebody, then it's definitely okay to re-email or try a different channel and say, did you get that?
I'm dreaming of the day when there's going to be a platform that says, Diana, please respond to this message. Please reply to. I think insistence is all a sales game. At the end of the day, we're all here trying to sell a product. So if you don't insist, it's not going to be, it's not going to be answered. The other thing that I also wanted to say, to kind of follow on from the question earlier, is this problem of us turning away from international markets to local markets has become apparent for a lot of businesses. So we have seen that, where our wineries were working with the US customers, and all of a sudden they have to really think about working with, let's say, the French customers. And all of a sudden the French customer is completely different to the American customer, and they do not know anything about how to sell the product to them, how to engage with them, and so on and so forth. So it shifts things completely. But if you are changing your strategy, you have to be very patient. You have to understand that whether you do influencer marketing or email marketing or whatever it is that you are there to do is going to be very long-term thing. So you have to be consistent. If you've done a campaign with influencers over 2 weeks, make sure that you measure the success. And next time when you do it again, you don't repeat the mistakes that you've made them, or if you've made something really great, do it again. And it's about consistency. Short stints of success don't work anymore because of the way that the world, digital world works. So you have to constantly be succeeding all the time. It's really complicated, but it is the reason why there are brands out there that do a great job and why others probably are struggling a little bit more than the rest.
And actually what you say applies to people trying to reach the influencers, but it also applies to the startups we have here. In any business, you're absolutely right. So going back to the startups that are here, you all met them today. There is actually a question about vegan grape-based leather. That's actually a great question because just so the audience know, this morning we had a business game, an investor business game here, trying to mix influencers and startup, and the winner of that game was the company making the grape-based leather called Mondain. They actually create leather from the grapes. So that's a good question, right on the point. Ilaria, we can't have enough of the Italian accent. So. How was your day with the startups this morning? Was you had the chance to meet with all these projects? Did you know from Italy? Did you know about this incubator, the French incubator? Have you heard about it? And how was the experience meeting all these projects?
This morning was wonderful for me because I had the opportunity to meet a lot of different reality. And it was quite difficult to me to catch all the information in English, but they were really kind, so they took it slow with me, and I discovered a lot of interesting things, like the creation of this later. Do you say later? I loved that one in order to produce later with the grapes, the rest of the grapes when you produce wine, but a lot of other different startups that work with in order to help the producer with the problem of the climate change and something like this. So it was wonderful for me. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for traveling to France to meet with the startups.
It was nice.
Diana, same for you. You came from the UK. You had a chance to meet the startups this morning and at lunch. Any comments on that part?
Gosh, it's so interesting doing these events because you meet so many people and you get so many ideas and you get inspired. You realize how inspiring the industry that we are in is. There, I love big data, so there is some stuff in here that was really great. I love the fact that a lot of these companies are starting to really change the way that wineries and chateaux are thinking about how they store the data. That for me is very important because it's saving them up a lot of time in the long run. I love the fact that there is so much in here that is about the impact on the environment, and this is something that we need to talk more about as an industry because this is the future. One thing that I have noticed is that more and more of our customers are asking whether they can do wine tours that are in sustainable wineries, how sustainable is the hotel that they're booking, and so on and so forth. So it was honestly a moment of great joy for me, and I love it. Technology is great, but when you're working in the wine industry, you realize how passionate people are about their environment, and that is a really, really special moment.
Well, thank you very much for your visits. Anyway, we have a new question for Humble Wine as a startup. As we are shifting to digital more and more, why did you decide to start with a physical book?
That's a question we've been asked quite a lot. Actually, we see that in this world we are more and more connected, of course, but we also see we want more experience, so we want to be able to touch, to go to visit for the wine, for instance. We don't want to drink the wines, but we want to go and visit, the story, and it's kind of the same for all parts studying wine. Digital is great, it's true, but we are connected all the time, and sometimes it's great to just have this traditional way of learning, to be able to focus, not being distracted. And so that's why it's really something that we asked as well our community. That's something we experienced. Getting the products that be able to turn the pages, it's all part of the experience. And there is as well a sustainable perspective, because all our products are printed on a recycled paper with vegetable-based ink. So we really want to share something that is not. We don't want people to get our books digital and then print. We want to deliver something that is high quality, but at the time sustainable. That's why we made this choice. But we had a great conversation this morning saying that, of course, the digital part is important, and it's one of the focus upcoming.
Jane, talking about books, any projects coming? Any still writing books? Do you still have time?
Yes, well, I will always still write books for sure. I'm actually translating at the moment Jean-Michel Caz's autobiography. So that will be lovely. The guy who owns Chateau Lynch-Barge, and he has an incredible story, and one of the few people still who has lived through Bordeaux for most of the 20th century. And really, I knew it would be too much work and I shouldn't have taken it on, but I love him and I didn't want anybody else to be translating his autobiography, so I'm doing that. So that will be out at the end of the year. And actually, I think people still do like to touch and to have this, the part of wine. People are so passionate, as you say, about wine. And when you're trying to learn about wine, having an actual physical book, I think, is really important. For my own situation with my website, it was a helpful companion to my book, because Inside Bordeaux is this huge kind of really almost encyclopedia, a real deep dive into Bordeaux. But I chose not to put individual tasting notes in that book because they're not that interesting to read. If you buy a book with a lot of different chateaux, and then all it says is the 2009 is quite good, the 2010 was okay, it quickly doesn't become interesting. And I wanted the book to be able to last for a long time. So I talk about the style of the wine, I talk about who are the people behind it, why should you care about it, but I don't do long individual tasting notes. And so for my site, that's a really nice companion for it. So you can have the book and get to know the estates, but if you want to actually know, should I buy the 2015 of that wine, then you go onto the site where you do have much more extensive tasting notes. So I'm in a lucky position that I can do those two things together. So yes, so in answer to your question, I hope I'm always got a book on the go at the same time.
Okay, thank you. As a conclusion, what about Jane has been settling down in Bordeaux? You are running Bordeaux Confidential. Any suggestion coming from Bordeaux Confidential for the audience those days?
So the other audience of Bordeaux Confidentiel, it's another way of thinking Bordeaux. It's another way of living Bordeaux. Bordeaux is wine, but not only wine. It's a culture, it's the street art, it's architecture, it's a lot of things. It's a great place to live, to be, and to test. I don't have a lot to say. Just enjoy and just. I'm agreed to be here today because I find us very, very friendly, very nice. A lot of a real connection and a nice connection, thanks to wine.
And I think that will be the conclusion. Thank you very much to this international audience from all over the world, all speaking in English today. Thank you for all those who were a little stressed out. But you're right, and this is the same in the incubator here. The wine is a common passion for all of the startups, for all of you today, influencers. it's a great way to gather people, and we need that after this COVID pandemic. So let's keep enjoying wine and talking about it and walking about it. And thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much to the audience for following this webinar. We hope this was helpful. And thanks to the crowd, to the startups here. Maybe we can hear you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.